Alrighty, check test. 1, 2. Hello, hello. How are you? Alrighty, check test. Okay, sounds good. We'll get rolling here in just a minute. I know I was just a little early, but testing out the new setup tonight to avoid the latency. And so hopefully, get over here and see about this camera. That's better. Okay. Oops. Okay. Hi, Gary. How are you, sir? Good to have you in. And to you, Chris, from out in Gallatin, Tennessee. Beautiful country out there. I'm actually in northwest Arkansas, up in the Ozarks right now. Julie from Michigan, enjoying the cool, relatively cool temperatures compared to Quartzsite. And of course, our buddy John from out in Michigan. Great to have you in. I'm gonna, yeah, surviving the heat for sure. I got your email, Gary. It just dawned on me that I didn't respond to it. Um, had a bit of a wild weekend here, quite a bit of wind, and it busted a limb out of my dad's tree. So luckily it didn't hit my car, but it was close. And we have Debbie Strix in from Laplace, Louisiana. That's Louisiana. Hi, Debbie. Great to have you in tonight. Barry Pesolano from Section in Alabama. Barry, awesome. Yeah, yeah. So it's been hot, but not as hot as the Northwest for sure. Wow, the Northwest of the United States, I should say. They are cooking out there. I'm going to try something here real quick. Just get a few adjustments made. We got John Carter in from Huntsville, Alabama. Yeah, I spent some time in Huntsville about oh 8, 9 years ago. Sorry about the camera bouncing. Let me see what I can do about that. See if we can get this stabilized a little bit. Um, we opened a project office out there, for a power line that we were building to a big big gas loading. Where they take and compress the natural gas and load it onto the tankers. I forget what they call those, but yeah, we had a project office there, and so we opened an office, and I spent. I was in Huntsville 4 or 5 times. I believe it was in 2007 and 8, somewhere back in there. Peggy Bloomfield. Oh, and Carl Jones. Hey, Carl, great to have you on the live stream from South Carolina. Peggy Bloomfield from Central Illinois. Welcome, welcome. We got 107 in Canada yesterday. Yeah, West Coast. We never see that for sure. I was watching. I saw Portland was 116. I think is what I saw on the news. And man, I'm telling you what, that is hot for Portland. They're normal about this time of the year is mid 70s, maybe upper 70s, and that's a warm day for Portland. So yeah, the Northwest is cooking. Hey, Randy Waller. I am still in Arkansas. It is warm in Pocatello, according to my little weather widget down here. It says it's 90 degrees there now. And here it is 86. And if you hear thunder, don't worry about it. It's a ways away. It looks pretty clear out there now, but there's a big black cloud out here. So tonight I got a couple things to talk about. We had a comment come in. I guess it was probably 2 live streams ago, and I went back and went through some of the chat comments. You can view the chat after the stream if you're watching this later. Let me stop that annoying thing. And you could just over on the right hand side of the screen, there'll be a little block that says "Hi Chat" or "View Chat," and you can open up the chat and actually follow along, because I can't imagine watching the live stream. I try to make sure that I repeat all the questions as much as possible, but I think it'd be weird to watch the live stream, especially one that interacts with the chat like this. So, with that being said, we're going to talk about tires tonight. We had a question come in early, and I think I'll address that one first. Let me get myself a little room here. I actually, to catch everybody up, I missed last Tuesday. I actually rescheduled and did it on Wednesday. I see some of you folks that are here tonight were on Wednesday's live stream last week. Normally this is on Tuesday and it'll stay on Tuesday, but for whatever reason, I could not get online last Tuesday with my phone. I couldn't even make a phone call, and I couldn't get online on DSL. And I was chatting. I ran into a fellow. I was over washing my car, and a guy came in with in a telephone truck, and I asked him what had happened last week, and he said that a big yellow cable locator, better known as a backhoe, had found the fiber that feeds this particular area and cut that fiber, and that's basically why everything was down. So anyway, that's the way it works. So we had a question come in early. I'm not sure if Regina is back in. She actually submitted this question a little bit before the chat started. And her question is, Nor cold fridge not working. Okay, well, we don't call them never cold for nothing. But she says she turned off the main power switch. Now it won't come back on. What should I do? Well, it depends on which Norcold it is. I had the Norcold 1200 in my 2004 Newmar Dutch Star. And in 2017, I removed it. We talked about this, I think it was last week, but there is a video on my channel about me. Actually, I think it's 3 videos, if memory serves correctly. These were the first how-to videos I ever did, and that was replacing the fridge in my RV. So I wouldn't say the production quality is what I do today, and in fact, it's been on my list for a while to re-edit that and make it into one video. Maybe when I get home from Arkansas here, I'll put that on the list. But anyway, she says, what should I do? Well, it depends on which Norcold it is. So I'm kind of hoping I'm going to scan down here in the comments and see if we see anything in from coming back from her. Okay, well, we'll just go ahead. There's a number of things that can happen with the Norcolds. It depends on how old it is and the model. So it's hard for me to say, but what I will say is figure out your model number and get on Google online or Bing or whatever your favorite search engine is, and type in a question, something around Norcold won't turn on, or Norcold quit working, or something like that. There's a number of steps you can go through to reset those Norcolds. They have, in the older Norcolds, they had to add an extra over temperature sensor because they were catching on fire. Speaking of, there's a video on my channel around fire safety in your RV. And in fact, the fire that I show you in that video was related to a Norcold 1200 that caught on fire and basically burned this Winnebago almost to the ground. I mean, it was a total loss. The folks that lived in it lost everything. So I'm hesitant to make too many recommendations until I know what model number and those sorts of things. But there are a number of ways to reset them. They have a number of common problems. And so I think that if you're not familiar enough with the equipment, it might be worth calling a technician in. Or doing a Google search, or going over to my favorite website, irv2.com, when it comes to RVing, and ask a question over there in the owners forum, and you'll probably find somebody that's going to know what's going on with that. But you're going to definitely need the model number for sure to be able to do that. So I'm going to run back over to the comments here real quick, and we'll take a quick spin through that. Michigan Dave from Port Huron. Yeah, that's excellent. Great to have you in. Randy, Randy Waller, who's a longtime viewer of the channel, bought some acreage out by Des Moines, Iowa. And he's been getting things set up so he can work on it and build a house out there. And he's got his Winnebago parked out there. He says he's cutting a walking nature trail in and around the perimeter of the property. That's pretty cool. That sounds like a good little project. Joe Gabor comes in. Hi, Joe. Great to have you. I use the BioGeo method when I empty my black tank. It reads empty as soon as I add water. It reads full. Any suggestions? Joe, how long have you been using the BioGeo method? And have you soaked and flushed your tanks several times? The reason I ask that is that the sensors could be gunked up with toilet paper and that sort of stuff. And if you add water and that toilet paper is touching the water, it could actually soak that toilet paper up. The sensor would look like it's full, but in reality, it's not. So I think a good solid flush cycle, um, maybe two or three. The best way to do that is to soak the tanks. I get the question all the time, and so I'll just give you the recipe that I generally give people. Take and fill the tank clear full of fresh water. Add a half a cup of borax and a half a cup of Dawn dish soap. And let it soak for a week or two, and then take it to the dump station and dump it. Now do that during the week, so you'll have time to sit there and mess around and flush the tanks out, and you're not going to be holding up somebody from getting to the dump station. But if you do that, you might want to have to do that a couple times, but eventually you're going to get that tank flushed out, washed out, and your tank level indicator should be working. Now, if you do that two or three times, it depends on how badly abused the tank has been. But sometimes you have to do it two or three times, and if you do, and it still is doing the same thing, there may be something wrong with your tank level monitor system, maybe a short or something like that. And so you might have to dig a little deeper. Okay, Joe Gabord. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay, that was that. Okay, John. At some point, could you refer me to a Dometic RM7030 refrigerator? It's a side by side. I put both circuit boards, bottom and top. The control boards aren't functioning properly. That sounds like a power supply. I'm not familiar with that model. Was there a power supply on one of those two control boards, um, or is the power supply separate? But that to me sounds like it might be a power supply problem. Camp Goer One, driving but listening. Hi, Linda. Great to have you in tonight. John reports he's 100 miles north of Detroit. Chris, wait, Wote. He asks, would having a bad battery affect my inverter not keeping my fridge to work properly? Yes, absolutely. Um, and now keep in mind that most fridges, if they're dual fuel, so they're propane and electric, require a 12 volt signal, a 12 volt source for all the control boards and everything. Okay? So if your battery gets too low and the fridge isn't getting 12 volts, that could cause it to not work properly. Also, most inverters most, okay, should shut off when the battery voltage gets to a certain point. That's called the low cutoff point. And it's there to stop your inverter from completely draining your battery down and damaging it. So, do you know what kind of inverter you have, Chris? Then that could give us maybe a tip to get you started down to looking for the right problem. And then also, do you know what your battery voltages are when the fridge quits working and when it is working? So there'd be two places I would look, but mostly I would look at your trailer batteries and make sure they're properly charged and showing at a minimum 12 and a half volts, 12.6. More than that is better. And then again, it kind of depends on which fridge it is and how sensitive they are to low voltage, particularly on the 12 volt side, which runs all the control panels and everything. Again, I would think that most inverters, again, I don't know what your inverter is, but most inverters have a low cutoff point. So when you hit that point on the 12 volt side of the batteries, it turns off the inverter so it doesn't hurt your batteries. Oh, you'd like someone who is familiar with wiring and how they work. Well, I know how they work. I wouldn't say I know the specific wiring for your model, but I'd be happy to look at it, and we'll see if we can maybe figure out what's it not doing, John. Did you tell me earlier and I just forgot already? It's a side by side. I put both circuit boards pop in, and the control boards aren't functioning properly. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll see what I can do for you, John. I'll do some digging and see what we can come up with. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Joe is answering me back. Yes, since August. Okay. Yes, every 2 weeks. Camper stationary. Okay. I'll get back to the others. So definitely need to soak. Uh, Normally, what I would do is I would recommend a road flush, which is where you put about a third of a tank of water in, the borax and the uh, Dawn dish soap, or borax and concentrated degreaser, ZEP, or orange cleaner, or like whatever that purple, simple purple anyway, in, and then go for a ride. Drive it to your next location, then dump your tanks, and all that sloshing around helps, clean the tanks out pretty good. Um, but since you're stationary, then you definitely need to soak. So, are you living in it full time, Joe? Or is it like a weekender? Oh, Randy's going to replace his Never Cold with a 12 with a GE 12 volt. Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good idea. The Using a straight 12 volt fridge is not a bad idea. I'm assuming it also is propane, or is it just 12 volts DC, Randy? Hi, George, aka Dad. Great to have you in the chat tonight. Oh, it's a residential. Okay, so a residential fridge. Um, what kind of rig do you have, Chris? What kind of rig are you running? Trailer, fifth wheel, towable, Class A, B, C, something like that? Let me know. Oh, okay, John. Yeah. I think Gary has a good idea, and that would be to contact the manufacturer of your rig and ask them for the nearest dealer. You could also get in touch with Dometic online, and they have pretty good resources on their website. And they also have a technical support number that you can call, and they may be able to get you down the road the right way. So yeah, I would give either your dealer a call and ask for the nearest dealer, your RV's manufacturer, and or get online, check out Dometic's website, and see if they can point you in the right direction, either to their technical support or maybe somebody in the area that knows those fridges. Okay, Chris writes back. It's a 2018 open range travel trailer 310 BHS. So that is a strict residential fridge. It's only running on 110, right, Chris? It is a regular residential fridge, and you're only running it off your inverter. Oh yeah, Dometic dealer. Yeah, no worries, Gary. Well, either way, because you're the RV manufacturer may say, we've got these guys here that know our rigs, and um, uh, that may be somebody you could reach out to. Strict residential fridge. Okay, Chris. Yeah, then something's going on. Did the fridge come with the rig, and already the inverter and the fridge came with the rig, right? So what I'm trying to do is eliminate a pure sine inverter versus a modified sine wave. And then the second thing I would suggest is make sure that you're getting your trailer pretty level when you're leveling at your site. Um, those things are both important, particularly with residential fridges. Okay, yes, it all came with the rig, yeah. And so basically, Chris, it just turns off, right? It just quits working. There's no, uh, it doesn't cool, I should say, but the light inside still works. Gracie, Seeking Adventures from Portland. Hotter than hell in Portland. Yeah, Gracie, you guys, we were talking about Portland just a minute ago, and I saw on the news it was 116 yesterday. And that's dang hot for you guys, for sure. I'm usually in Pocatello, Idaho. I happen to be in Arkansas. And those of you that are on the stream know this, but my father fell, well, I guess it'd been almost 3 weeks ago, and broke his hip. And so I'm here taking care of his place and keeping an eye on my brother who's disabled. And so, yeah, that's why I'm here in Arkansas right now, where it's hot and muggy. Um, okay, so Chris comes back and says, only when I'm transported it becomes warm. Okay, so yeah, that's probably because it's going out of level. And so that would be the first thing. And I think Gary just mentioned something here. Make sure that it's plugged in fully, completely plugged in. Because keep in mind, when you're rolling down the road, it's like a rolling earthquake, and that plug might have backed itself out. So track it down and figure out where it's plugged in and make sure that it's still plugged in. Um, and then also, when it does get warm and you're traveling down the road, do you still have 110 power? Pardon me. Do you still have 110 power in the coach or in the trailer? Because for some reason or another, the inverter um, might be turning off when you're going down the road, which would turn off your fridge. So you're sure your inverter is staying on when you're running down the road, and um, when it does get warm and you're on the road, you still have electric power, 110 power inside your RV. Okay. Let's see. Uh, yep, Gary. Okay, Gracie. Uh, laugh out loud. In a 16-hour period yesterday, our temp dropped 60 degrees from 116 high in Oregon. Woo! Yeah, that's brutal. How high is your humidity? Let's see. Yeah, that's good. Okay, Pokey, Idaho, a place I never want to be in winter. Oh, Pocatello's not bad. You get north of Pocatello. Well, here's last winter. I have really good friends in Idaho Falls. I actually grew up there, and so I was up there half a dozen times this past winter. And the snow in Idaho Falls was there all winter, and Pocatello had snow maybe a total of 10 days. And we only had one below 10-degree day, and that was clear in October of last fall, of fall of 20. And then after that, it never got below zero. It got down to 10 or so degrees, but not below that. So, um, but yeah, you're right. It can be cold as hell in eastern Idaho for sure. You're welcome, Chris, anytime. And Gracie says, yeah, she doesn't think it was too bad. Okay, don't forget, if you're just coming in, you're more than welcome to drop a question over in the chat window. Also, if you're just coming in, be sure and drop a note in there. Let us know where you're watching from. Always fun to see where people are. We get people. 2 weeks ago, we had a fellow in from England. That's the middle of the morning out there. I think we decided it was like 3 a.m. out there. So I'm not going to comment on the hour because I know how that goes. I get up, I'm waking up sometimes that early, not usually to get online and watch a YouTube video, but you never know. Uh, yeah, I know some walls. Um, I do. Interesting. Okay, so I promised I was going to talk about trailers, tires. I'll get it out. Tires. And I had a question come in 2 weeks ago wanting my opinion about ST versus LT tires on trailers. And so let's first talk about what the difference is. ST stands for special trailer tire. Typically, when you buy tires for your trailer, you're going to get 6 or 8 ply or more, okay? Because trailer tires are a little bit taller and the sidewalls are stiffer. So what that means is that the sidewalls versus like the cars on your tire are much stiffer. They You've probably noticed that sometimes when you pull your car in or your truck into a certain spot, that the side of the tire is bulging a little bit. You think, oh gosh, they might be low. Or they're probably not. They're probably, well, you should check them first. But that's just the way car tires and light truck tires are built. Special trailer tires, or ST tires, have a much firmer sidewall because the weight is much higher in the air and the center of gravity, okay, is much higher up in the trailer. And so when you're driving down the road and that trailer's rocking back and forth like this, you want that stiffer sidewall to keep it from sinking even further as you drive down the road. So an LT is just a light truck tire, a light truck tire. Man, I got the Gucci tonight. Um, the LTs are light truck tires, and you will find them on cars, pickups, RVs, motorhomes, and those sorts of things. And the argument goes, well, I did a little bit of Googling on this, and it seems that there's a bit of a controversy brewing around the difference between ST or LT tires on your RV. And I think what he was asking me for was what I thought about that controversy. Um, I have personally had many trailers, and I always ran ST tires on them. I ran an appropriate load tire, and what I mean by that is that you should replace your tires with the tire size and load factor that came with it. You should also know the weight of your trailer. Now, how do you get that weight? Go to your truck stop in town, and they very likely will have a cat scale. It'll cost you $12 or thereabouts to get it weighed. And so take it and get it weighed. And make sure that you're not overloaded and carrying more weight than you should on those tires. If you are carrying more weight, then you should check your owner's manual and check to see what the axle or axles are rated for as far as weight goes. So those are two things you should check. But in all cases, you should have a tire with an appropriate weight rating to handle the weight on your rig, on your RV, whether it be a fifth wheel, class A, B, C, a travel trailer, any kind of towable, anything like that. You want to make sure that you have the right size tires with an appropriate weight rating. Okay. Now your tire guy will know what you need if you go to them and say, my trailer weighs 14,000 pounds. My trailer weighs, 9,000, maybe 20,000. Some big fifth wheels can weigh as much as 25,000. And so they want to make sure that you're getting the right load for the tire. The same thing with LTs. You can put LTs on your trailer, no problem. Again, you want to get the appropriate load rating, and you also want to make sure that you're getting a more than 4-ply or 6-ply tire. Most of those trailer tires are 8, 10, 12, or even 14 plies, and that's how many layers are in that tire. The other thing is, you should never put ST tires on a car or a motorized vehicle. They're not built for steer axles. They're not built for the axle that steers when you go down the road. Okay, they're built for trailers and trailers only. You should also never run car tires on your trailer. You always want to run ST or an appropriate sized LT. I honestly don't think there's going to be a heck of a lot of difference between running an ST or an LT tire on your trailer, RV, fifth wheel, whatever the case may be. Now, if you have a motorized RV, class ABC, you're going to run LT tires, okay, of an appropriate size. The biggest thing that will kill your tires is having them underinflated, which will lead to excessive heat when you're towing, and that excessive heat is deadly on your tires. I happened to catch a comment out of the corner of my eye here from Barry, who says ST tires have a compound that prevents the sun from drying, rotting the tire. That's absolutely true, and in fact, LT tires have that as well. I do, however, recommend that if you're parking your trailer outside, you should, and then this goes for any RV, you should pick yourself up some inexpensive tire covers. They don't cost a lot. I think I got a set of 4 for my Class A, and they were, I want to say, under $60 for all 4. But that's the best way to protect your tires, particularly like if it's in storage or you're parked someplace for a long time. That will help keep the sun off of them, keep the dry rot off of them. And then the last thing I'll mention about tires is you never ever want to run a tire on your RV that's older than 6 years, period. The recommendation is that you change your tires out at a minimum every 6 years, regardless of how many miles you've got on them. Many people will buy tires and they'll have a 40,000 mile rating on them. But a lot of people with towables and RVs, unless you're doing major cross-country touring, you're not going to put that many miles on those tires, so they're not going to wear out before you need to take them off. So 6 years is the magic number. I have an article on my website, trbolin.com, talking about spring startup maintenance or dewinterization. And in there, I discuss how to find the date on your tires. I recommend you go over and check that out. It's right there on the front page of my website at trbolin.com. And visiting me over there, you're going to find even more solid information. And then I have on my YouTube channel. They kind of go hand in hand. Oftentimes, the really complicated and interesting things like spring maintenance and winter maintenance and those sorts of things, I'll not only have an RV how-to on my YouTube channel, but I'll also have an article over on my website that you can follow up on, and you'll have a full listing, and usually there's checklists and all sorts of stuff there that'll help you um, do things, at least get you started. Because again, my checklists, one of the things I always caveat about is that every RV is different. Every RV has different maintenance requirements and spring startup requirements and those sorts of things. But the list is pretty comprehensive. And what I do is I expect you to take that list and customize it to your rig. Get you started in the right point, but there may be things you need to do on your rig that you want to add to that list. And so that's my thoughts on that. So I hope that helped do a little education tonight on tires, ST, special trailer, or LT, light truck tires. I think as long as you have a tire that's rated appropriately for your rig, whatever it may be, the correct size, the correct weight rating, I think that the difference is going to be negligible. Hi, Doug D. from Las Vegas, Las Wages. Thank you, Gracie. Russell Bailey from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I've been to Kalamazoo. Great. That's one of those really cool names. Any city name that has a Z in it, I like. Another good name of city I like is Truth or Consequences in New Mexico. Oh yeah, life stuff all over there, buddy. George, aka Dad, had a high priority interruption. The wife's bringing him strawberry shortcake. It's definitely strawberry season, thank goodness. Robert Black, 1911. Hello, welcome aboard. Yeah, 7 years. Okay, I'm not going to chastise you too much, but I believe 6 years is pretty much the industry standard. You know, Dave, Michigan Dave says I had the tire dealer told me I didn't need to balance new tires for my trailer. I had them balance them anyway. Totally agree with that. Um, I had new tires put on my rig on my RV. I guess it would have been 2018, um, and I had them all. I had all six balanced. Yeah, it added like $20 a tire, but I didn't want any wobbles going down the road. Robert's in Houston, Texas. Welcome, Robert. I know the Houston area pretty well too. I spent a lot of time in Houston. Had multiple offices in Houston, up near the Loop, up around where 45 comes out. Um, yeah, up in the what do they call that? The Kate, not Katy. Oh, it's the Schnazzy Woodland. I think it's the Woodland area up there on in North Houston. George's home base is in Massachusetts, so he's a masshole. I tease these guys a lot, and I hope everybody knows it's just teasing. There's nothing personal here. Um, Barry has a 2007 Teton Experience, the empty weight 18 grand. We're running Marathon 2, 3570, 85 16s, 4 plies at 110. Yeah, and that's something I should mention too. Thanks for reminding me there, Barry. Um, the inflation of those tires is important. I think I mentioned that underinflation is a major problem that you want to avoid because underinflated tires build up a lot of heat. And so when you get those tires put on at the dealership, at your tire dealer, ask them what the inflation rate should be. Also, there's tons of opportunities and information online on how to figure out what your inflation rate should be. And in fact, every tire manufacturer, if you go to their website and go to the tire manufacturer's website, don't go to Jim Bob's Tire in BFU, Oklahoma. Okay, go to the tire dealer's site, find the actual specifications for that tire, and look up what the inflation rate should be based on how much weight you got. It's actually fairly straightforward. Robert Black, he says, lots of chatter on the forums about AC not cooling in 100 plus degree heat. Do they really sell an RV without adequate AC coverage? Yes. I get a kick out of this. I see these really dark black, dark brown, dark purple, really super dark RVs rolling down the road, and they have 40 footers, 45 footers with two ACs on top. They're never going to get that puppy cold. Yeah, never going to get that puppy cold, especially in 100-degree temps. Now, I've seen a lot of that in the forums the last couple of weeks too, around the 100-degree heat. And I have some personal experience. You know, last year because of the virus, I spent 2 extra months in Tucson, and I didn't leave Tucson until the 25th of May. And that month of May, I think there were probably 5 days that were under 100 degrees for the daytime high. And I used a lot of Reflectix. That's the mylar coated bubble wrap, with the shiny surface. And I put Reflectix up in the front window and in a couple of the bigger side windows, particularly on the sunny side of the coach. I didn't want to black the whole coach out, so I was living in a cave. But yeah, that Reflectix works well to help keep the heat down for sure if you're in a hot climate. Or you do like Julie and get the heck out of Quartzsite and go to Michigan for the summer. Kwoo's in Baltimore. Great town, Baltimore. Yeah, but Gary, yeah, I think having all the tires balanced for the $5 or $6, I think it just makes sense. Besides, if that tire is bouncing, not only is it causing your RV to bounce a little bit, but it's bouncing those bearings, those wheel bearings, and they can let go and ruin your day too. Yeah, Woodlands is a nice area. Yeah, Deb, blowouts are serious business. One of the RV channels out there, I wish I could remember which one. I watch about 5 or 6 of them, and I just don't remember who it was. Had a steer tire blow on their Class A. That is a bad day. I've had a blown tire. I lost an inside dual on mine, and yeah, I lost the fender, and it took out my compartment, actually my electrical compartment where my inverter was. And in that compartment, I had 2 gallons of Dello 400 because both my generator and my rig I run Dello 400 because they're both diesel. I had 2 gallons of antifreeze, a gallon of cat antifreeze, and then also a gallon of 50/50 mix for the generator. There was probably some wax and some other things in there, and when that tire let go, it hit that compartment. This was on I-44, about probably 90 miles east of Memphis. I think it was I-44. No, it was on I-40. Excuse me, on I-40. And when that tire let go and hit that compartment, it blew that oil and everything everywhere. I spent $12 at the quarter car wash just getting it off my car. That's how bad it was. Yeah, it took part of the fender off, damaged 2 compartment doors. Yeah, it was a hell of a mess and really expensive. The body work and to get that repaired was over 9,000, not counting the new tire. So yeah, blown tires are a huge bummer, no doubt. Um, the story goes that 2013 is when that happened, and I happened to be crossing the country quite a bit. I was doing contract work, 1099 work, and I was traveling from a project I had in San Diego and to a project that I had in Virginia in my RV, cross country 4 times with fuel prices $4+ a gallon. But on the trip back westbound on I-40, I was thinking about it, and there was still an oil slick, a huge oil spot on the interstate from where I blew that tire. You could still see the oil spot on the interstate a year later. Those dynabeads, I've heard good and bad, John. Um, I've heard good and bad. So I don't have any firsthand experience, and I generally tend to try to avoid talking about stuff that I don't have firsthand experience on. But yeah, I would. Um, I'm gonna have to retain comment on that too much. Deb Caron, 14-inch tires, terrible tires. Inflated them before I left. Scary. Yeah, it is scary. And so let's see. John comments, I have 6 tires on the Holiday Rambler Navigator and 4 tires on the trailer. What tire pressure monitor is the most reliable? Okay, I use the EEZ tire pressure monitoring system. I have 10 stations because I'm monitoring all 6 of the tires on my RV and the 4 on my Toad, my 2014 Subaru Crosstrek. The thing about that one is make sure you get the little booster thing because you get far away from where the monitor is, clear up at the front, and the signal drops out, and so you'll lose communication, particularly with the right-hand trailer tires. You might have a trouble with that, but they make a little booster for it that you can put, and I put mine back in my battery compartment. That way I had 12 volts right there, and I could just power it off the 12 volts in my battery compartment. And so I use the EEZ. And that reminds me, selfish, shameless self-promotion here. If you'd like to support the channel, I do have an Amazon store. There's a link in the description of this video that if you click through that link, and you can go buy anything on Amazon, it doesn't have to be RV related, and I'll get a very small commission. It doesn't add up to much. Last month it was $134. I'll be honest with you. I just got the check. Well, it's not a check. It just went to my banking account. But every little bit helps. And I use my Amazon money to buy new gear. I bought a new GoPro Hero 8 last fall with the money I got from Amazon. And so that's what I use that for. And so, again, your support is greatly appreciated if you want to support me over on Amazon. I thank you in advance. Yeah, I hear you there, John. He says he had a flat on his trailer and had no idea. You don't feel it in the diesel pusher. Motorists flagged me over, otherwise I could have ruined the rim, all aluminum. Yeah, that's a drag. In fact, way back in the beginning of time, before I got my Subaru, I used to tow around a VW Jetta TDI on a tow dolly, and I couldn't get rid of that tow dolly fast enough. But I had the same thing happen on my tow dolly, and in fact, the tire didn't get completely flat, but it was really low. And yeah, somebody pulled up alongside me, caught my attention, and yelled out the window at me because I flipped open the window that I had a low tire on the tow dolly. I was able to get pulled over and get it changed before it totally let go. But yeah, that's what convinced me I needed a tire pressure monitoring system, TPMS, and the EEZ is the one I use. There's another one out there. I don't have any firsthand experience with it, but the EEZ, you're all in probably for 10 tires with the monitor and the booster right around 500. But that's cheap insurance. In fact, I think I mentioned that I do a little review on the EEZ. It's in a video from the end of 2018. It was probably on the road, episode 10 or 11. I was leaving the Juniper Campground. That's probably what the title says. I saw a question go by earlier and I forgot to answer it. Where's Aaron? I haven't reached out to him. I'm not sure, but he's totally volunteer, and mostly what the moderator's there for, not only to kind of help with the presentation, but to keep the trolls and the trolls and the a-holes out, and to stop those comments from getting through. I believe this about life and in YouTube as well, that if you give out good information and good energy and you're not a jerk, you don't get jerks watching your channel. And I would have to say that's generally true. I occasionally get either the internet expert or the jerk, and I just let them blow off, unless their comments are mean, rude, or uh, just flat out inappropriate. I'll leave them up, but I got one 2 weeks ago that I deleted because the guy was just being a jerk. He didn't have anything to say other than just jerky things, so he was gone. Randy, that's a great point. Randy Waller is an HVAC tech, by the way, and he says any AC will struggle in 100-degree heat. It's all about the R value of the insulation, and RVs are sadly lacking. Yes, indeed. Unless you get into like a Montana that has the cold climate package put on it, where they have the super insulation and all that. Yeah, the normal, and okay, I'm going to brag a little bit. My Newmar Dutch Star has 4.5-inch, 3.5-inch walls, and so I've got normal R13 insulation throughout it, even in the ceiling and the roof. And in fact, there's a little bit of foam on the wall or on the roof itself, another half-inch of foam. So that's going to add a little bit more R value. But yeah, in general, RVs are not insulated well. And plus, a lot of them are dark colors. And as I mentioned earlier, a dark colored RV is just going to soak up the irradiated energy. And they get brutal. They do. It's like living in an easy bake oven, for those of you that remember those. Okay, thanks, Carl. Yeah, KYD, keep your daydream. Um, and he did chat with the guy about who blew a right front, or it was right front tire on his Class A. Z Square, yes, sir. RVs, ACs are just like any other AC. They do have motor starter capacitors, and they're fairly easy to change. I have a video on my channel about that. I did it myself. I guess it would have been late 2017, maybe late 2018. But I had a motor capacitors blow out in my front AC, and so what I did was I got the capacitors and changed them all out at the same time. Of course, at that point, my ACs were 12, 13 years old. And I just decided to preventative maintenance, just change them all out. They're not terribly hard to do. Just make sure you know which wire goes where. And in that video, I show you a trick about how I labeled my wires so I could get them back on the right parts. But that's it. It's really pretty simple to do. I will mention that if your ACs are older and if you've got one that's blowing a breaker when it starts, that's probably the motor starter capacitor. And so they're easy to change. But when you get up there to take the fairing off the AC, be careful because they get really brittle in the UV. They sit out in the sun all day, every day, and they get super brittle. And so when you go to take those screws off, be careful that you don't crack it. And when you lift it off, be careful with it because they'll get really brittle and they will break. And you can get replacements. They're $100 or so for a replacement uh, fairings. You know, the plastic thing over the top of the um, AC unit. Randy is helping me with the AC question. He says most ACs have two capacitors, a start capacitor and a run capacitor. Um, Randy, it could be the compressor, but I'm thinking probably the capacitors are just old and weak. And yeah, their RV ACs are exactly the same, with the exception being most RV ACs are not rechargeable. They charge them. There's no manifold connections up there, so you can measure the high side and the low side on those to know how much is in it. Yeah, they're set and forget, and they're not really built to be recharged, like your like a home AC system or even your auto AC. They're not built to be recharged. That's the only difference I know about them. True, Gary Boyd says dark RVs also paint check sooner. Absolutely correct. Gene Kidd's in from Toledo, Ohio. He says, can I talk a little bit about the black water vacuum breaker on the tank flush? I just had one break and found it 2 feet up in the bathroom wall. I didn't know they installed this. Absolutely, required by code. Most RV manufacturers follow the RVIA, the RV Industry Association recommendations, which are a set of specifications that set safety standards. That's the word I was looking for. Safety standards on RVs. Part of those standards are that any water that could potentially, any source of fresh water that could potentially come in contact with contaminated water, black tank water, has to have a vacuum breaker in the line. For those that don't know, what a vacuum breaker does is that it doesn't provide a continuous connection of water across the vacuum breaker. Essentially what it is if there's no pressure on it, there's a little valve that will open and stop water from siphoning back past it. This is to stop black water. Let's say, for example, I'll give you a scenario. Let's say you fill your black tank clear full, and the actual spray head that sprays in the tank is actually immersed in the water in your black tank. And then you turn it off or didn't let it soak, okay? If you didn't have a vacuum breaker, there's a slight chance that that water could get drawn back into your potable, your drinking water system, and contaminate it. And that's not a thing you want to have happen. So yes, the other thing is that the vacuum breaker has to be a certain height above the tank. And I don't know exactly, I think it's 30 inches. Don't quote me on that. And so, like in my RV, my vacuum breaker for my tank flusher is tucked up underneath the sink in the bathroom. And now you can actually hear it, the water rushing through it when you're in the bathroom. So yeah, that is, and then also on a toilet, you're going to have a vacuum breaker. I know that I have a video on my channel about fixing that vacuum breaker on a Sealand 510 Plus RV toilet. It has the same concept. So if your toilet bowl has a rim flush, so in other words, when you flush the toilet and water runs down the inside of the bowl, that's a rim flush. And that will have a vacuum breaker on it as well for the same reason. If your toilet overfills, that water could get sucked back into your drinking water line and contaminate your drinking water. So they do install those as part of the standards around the RVIA. Typically, you'll find a sticker, or sometimes in your owner's manual, they'll it'll say RVIA certified or standards. And most major RV manufacturers are a member of it. Okay, Gene, I hope that helped you. George commenting back about my mass holes. If you're not from the Northeast or you've never visited up there, the folks over in like Vermont, Connecticut, Maine, call the Massachusetts mass holes because they all drive badly. But yeah, they get what they deserve. Jason Mills, hello, sir. How are you? Great to have you in the chat tonight. George, aka Dad, says, but 80 miles to the mountain streams and rivers of Vermont, 80 miles to the beaches of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Cape Cod. Yeah, I'm not knocking where you live. I love Massachusetts. When I was younger, I always wanted to live in Boston. KWoo10 asks, Z squared before I jump ahead. You're very welcome anytime. That's why we're here. Be sure and tell your friends. Normally, I would be knocking it up here and locking up here real quick, but we still have about 30 odd people online. And so if you have a question, be sure and throw it in there. And I'll keep going, well, for at least another 10 or 15 minutes, as long as the questions keep coming in. Okay, KWoo10, is it safe to drink water from the freshwater tank? I just can't imagine drinking it. Absolutely. KWoo, there's a video on my channel around sanitizing your freshwater tank. Okay, sanitizing is the key. Okay, not sterilizing is not necessary to sterilize your freshwater tank, but to sanitize it. It's really a simple process. And yes, I drink the water out of my holding tanks. No, not out of my holding tanks, but I drink the water out of my freshwater system all the time. Not a problem. I don't even think about it because I sanitize my tank regularly, so it never smells. It always tastes clean and fresh, depending upon the local source. You know, you can get water in some places that's smelly and nasty, right? And so if you can avoid it, I would not pack that around in my holding tank. You know, I would go someplace where I could get nice, clean, fresh smelling water. But yeah, it's totally okay to drink the water out of it. I've said this many, many times that everybody has different sensibilities. So if that bugs you, then buy bottled water or get yourself a good filtered water filter. I also filter all the water that goes in my RV. I have a two-stage system that's a particulate filter and then a carbon filter. And if you want good tasting water, carbon is the key. So you want to get a carbon filter and just put it in line. They're really easy to install. And then 2 years ago, I actually installed an RO system, reverse osmosis. And then I've gone so far as to buy a water softener, a portable 10,000 grain water softener that I pack around. And that made a big difference, particularly out here in the West, where I spend most of my time. The water is super hard and full of calcium. It'll kill a coffee pot in 6 months if you're not paying attention to it, cleaning it regularly. And so I went with a water softener as well. And yeah, they're not expensive. They're really easy to maintain. They just take table salt. And I would get 45 days off my water softener before I had to recharge it when I was using it full time in the winter. Yes, indeed, Julie. Julie just says she just made an appointment for July to install a used Blue Ox. That's a tow bar tow system to pull her Honda CRV. And I see people pulling CRVs all over. That's one of the most popular tows. She says she's so excited. She learned quickly when traveling from California to Michigan. I needed a towed. Yeah, there's nothing worse than getting someplace and not having a car that can get you around. Some people make it work, but if you're traveling in a class A for sure, you definitely want a towed. Yeah, it's pretty hard to take your class A. Well, I guess you could take it to Walmart, but some places you go, there may not be a Walmart. You might have a problem. Thank you, Gary. I can just imagine what it might be. Caleb Sapien. Hi, Caleb. Welcome. What is my favorite RV make and model? Well, I'm pretty partial to my Newmar Dutch Star diesel pusher, 40 footer. But I also like the Montanas. Montana makes one incredible fifth wheel for sure. I know lots of people who have the Montanas and just rave about them. The thing I like about the Montanas is that, with the bedroom up front, you have the rest of the space as your living space. And the folks that parked next to me in Tucson last year, they'd been there for years, as many years as I've been, well, many more. They even had an island in theirs, and it was an amazing. It felt very comfortable. So I like the Montana fifth wheels as well. Gene Kidd, hello, Gene. No, Gene. On the toilet, it's going to be usually at the back of the toilet, underneath the rim, back where the seat connects. And it's a little clear plastic widget that has a pipe that comes out of it, and it goes through a grommet in the toilet bowl, which then feeds the rim flush. And so it usually sits right behind the toilet, right underneath the ledge where the toilet seat is. Uh, Again, I'll refer you to the video over on my channel that I show you and replace the vacuum breaker on my Sealand, which is a Dometic 510 Plus. Hope that helped. Mike Larson, hello from Southern California, Stan. Hello. Please don't Californicate Idaho, Mike, okay? Donald Bowie. Hello, Donald. I have an Airstream 1984 XL 270. Should I go for a tankless water heater? Absolutely. The best upgrade I did to my RV was the tankless water heater. Well, and it kind of runs it close. I don't know. It's neck and neck with the residential refrigerator, getting rid of the never cold. But I'll tell you what, that tankless water heater, as long as you have propane and water, you got hot water. And it just runs. And I put the Girard 2 gallon per minute in my rig. And what was nice about it is that the outside cover, I had to buy a new cover because on the Girard it has a round exhaust, and of course my door was square, and so I had to buy a new cover. But I just airbrushed it and matched it with the colors on my rig. You don't even know it's not original. So yes, David, I would definitely go for a tankless water heater. Oh, and by the way, they sip propane. Um, I parked, let's see, I was parked from, would have been around the 11th of November 2019 till the 25th of May in 2020, which is what, 8 months. And I got by on 38 gallons of propane, and that included my running my furnace a little bit, not a lot, and then also my cooking. I have gas top, propane cooking, obviously. And so they sip propane. They don't use a lot of propane at all. And I shower regularly too, by the way. Don't think I was chinsing out on the water for sure. Cindy Reyes, running on city water when first turned on faucet, no water pressure for a minute, then slowly the water starts to flow. Okay, so what's going on, Cindy, is that where you connect the hose on the outside of your RV, and I'm assuming that's what you're talking about when you say you're on city water, there is a check valve in there. It's a backflow preventer, again, by standards, and also because you need to build pressure in the system. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what the check valve is that it only lets water go one way. And they can get crudted up with calcium, hard water, those sorts of things. The springs can get weak. There's a number of other things that can happen there. But that would cause that valve to not open fully or open slowly if it's crudted up. And that sounds exactly like what's going on. So what I'd recommend is that you can fix this yourself. It's really easy. You can buy that the water connection, the potable water connection, get it on Amazon, on my Amazon store, and support the channel. Thank you very much. But it's easy to change. There's really no tools required, other than maybe a screwdriver to take it off wherever you connect it to the RV, wherever that might be. But I'm betting you dollars to donuts that's what you got going on. You just need to replace that connection, and they're about 15, maybe $20. So they're not expensive at all. But that is my guess on why, when you're on city water, it takes a while for the pressure. Now, I'm assuming that when you're running with your pump, the pressure comes right on. And the reason for that is that that check valve needs to close for the pump to build pressure in your water lines. And so that's the second reason it's in there, is it closes, right? So it covers like this. I don't know, can you see? And that allows pressure to build up in your plumbing system, so the pump works properly. So if it's got plenty of water pressure when it's on the pump, but not when you're on city water, you definitely need to change that. And again, you're into it for 15 or 20 bucks. There is a video that you could probably see what those look like on my channel. If you look for changing the outside shower faucets on my channel, you're going to find a video that I take my water bay apart, and you'll be able to see. In fact, I think I called out the check valves in that video. But you might check that one out too. You might find some use in that to see what you're getting into. But it's really easy to do. Carl Jones asks, have you been getting the itch to get back on the road? Well, yes and no. Carl, for those of you that haven't followed your channel for a while, I was a full-timer for 4 years. And then, I've got family things that I needed to get prepared for. And so I needed to get back into a home, which I did last fall at the exact right time, by the way. No luck, but dumb luck. Anyway, so I haven't. But I'll tell you, I was a little bit road sick. I don't mean car sick, I mean road sick. Missing being on the road as I drove here from Idaho, the 1,350 odd miles it was. And I kept seeing RVs with toads going by. And yeah, I kept flashing back and thinking about, being back on the road and traveling again. And yeah, I do miss it a little bit. Good night, Gary. Great to have you in. Annie's mom. Hi, Annie's mom. What would cause the electric to only run the microwave? It's a travel trailer. Okay, well, you might have only one 110 outlet, which would be weird. There's usually more than one. And you might not have an inverter, a very big inverter. It's hard to say. What kind of a trailer do you have? How big is it? And do you know how big your inverter is? But it's very possible that they only provided 110 to that. Now, if you're talking about the 12-volt power, then that could be a number of things like blown fuses and those sorts of things. It would be really hard for me to diagnose, but you're more than welcome to. I'd be happy to work with you on an email string. And you can email me at trbolin, BOWLIN, @gmail.com. And, but yeah, Annie, try to give us some feedback here. I'll see if I can catch up on the comments. I know there's a few in there. Mike Larson reports back, I used your method for the Blackwater tank. The system works great, but I found out that our new motorhome has a leak both in the black tank and the gray tank. That's not good. So Gary, Mike, here's a little tip for you. Hydrogen peroxide. Get some 3% hydrogen peroxide, the type that comes in the bottle. That will help get the smell out from wherever the leak is. Because my guess is that it's probably pretty stinky. And so you just liberally pour some hydrogen peroxide down in there. Let it bubble and boil a little bit. Then put a fan and blow air across it to dry out wherever you're treating for that. That should get rid of the smell for you pretty quick. I had a similar problem where I had a crack in my black line, and it was, my water bay was really, really reeking bad. And that's what I did. I just took some hydrogen peroxide, the 3% kind, that you get at, for 99 cents a bottle, and I just liberally poured it around on the area. In fact, the area where it had leaked was carpeted, which was kind of a drag. But anyway, it took the smell right out, and no problems after that. Oh, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Randy, he's entertaining this weekend. That's excellent. Friends and coworkers coming out to camp for the holiday, barbecue, fireworks, and adult beverages. I had the first event at my place over on Memorial Day weekend Sunday, where I'd actually had people to my house the first time in many months, many months. But I used to entertain all the time. In fact, I used to camp. I would go up to a place, one of my favorite places called Birch Creek, and friends would come and meet me out there, and we'd have a great Dave. We'd have a great time. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Hi, Sue Kelly. Thanks for coming in. You're never late. The rerun's always back, always there for you. I thank you. Annie's mom, Apex, older, 30 feet. My husband checked fuses. Nope, that wasn't that. Okay. You might check your grounds. A lot of these trailers that's older. Okay, so that's a key. When they get older, things loosen up, and so go to your fuse block, and there's probably a wad of white wires coming back to the fuse block. Those are your grounds, and you want to check and make sure those are all connected properly. They haven't worked their way out of the connector, so tug on them a little bit. Make sure that they're not loose. Also, tighten up any nuts, screws, or anything. And if it's not right at the fuse block, it's going to be somewhere close to it. I know a friend of mine, this is really weird. His fuse block was back in his bedroom, but the ground, where all the grounds landed, was underneath the seat of his table. This is in a travel trailer, but it was a big block. So what you're going to find is probably a bunch of white wires all coming to a common point. Those are your grounds. And then check and make sure they're all tight. Tug on the wires, check the connections, make sure they're not corroded or anything like that. And that would be the things I would check if it's the 12-volt side. If it's the 110 side, again, there's a number of things it could be. I would check your inverter, check the fuse block, fuse breakers, that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's it's difficult to diagnose electrical problems over a live stream. Mike Larson used okay, he says he's tried to fix both of his leaks before they move across country in 2 months. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you participating and joining us on the live stream. And I know I've seen other comments from you on videos, and I thank you very much for all of that. There is, of course, a video around replacing your holding tanks valves on my channel. The flange wouldn't be that difficult to replace. It's ABS. You can get them online from my Amazon store. You can get them online at Amazon, a 3-inch flange or those sorts of things. It's just typical ABS pipe. You can pick up the pipe at Home Depot. You're probably not going to find the flanges at Home Depot, by the way. And then also keep in mind that all of those valves, there's an O-ring on the surface of the valve that seals that to the flanges at the dump valve locations. And that's where mine was leaking, which led me to change out my valves when I did that. But again, video on the channel that you might be able to use when you get into that, and it might give you a few tips. Thanks, Michigan Dave. We'll see you next week. Appreciate you being here. Mike Larson says, I think my leak is at the flange where the tank drains into the pipe for dumping. I sanded the area down and then used contact cement, a bike inner tube, and 2 hose clamps to seal it. Yeah, I kind of doubt that's going to work. I don't know what it is about those damn things, but if you don't go right back to the original configuration, there should have been an O-ring on the face of those flanges by the valves. Like if they're gate valves, and they should be gate valves, right? And man, those O-rings, Yeah, those O-rings, the slightest little nick causes them to leak. The slightest little surface imperfection. Yeah, it's tricky. But let me know if that actually worked. Um, I kind of doubt that's going to seal it, but I hope it does, Mike. I hope it's that easy. Yeah, and I tried some flex tape, or I tried flex seal on the Kraken and drain line. It never did fix that. I ended up having to fix that too properly. You're very welcome, Annie's mom. I hope it helped. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, John. Okay. Any last questions, comments? So if you like what you're seeing, I appreciate that thumbs up always. That helps get the video ranked up, and more people can watch it. It the the live stream really depends on people asking questions. We had some great questions tonight. I hope I answered them appropriately and properly. Um, but and again, as always, if I don't know the answer and I don't have firsthand experience, I'm not going to lead you astray. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to pull answers out of my poop. Um, we're just going to cut to the chase, and I'll go do research and answer it the next week. Thank you, Gene Kidd, Robert Black, Kay Wu, Julie. He is doing fine. He's not home yet. He's still at the rehab hospital. Probably, I'm guessing he's going to be there at least another 2 weeks, which means for probably another 3 weeks, you're going to see this wonderful background here by the sliding door at his house. Um, but yeah, it's he's doing okay. He came out of the when you're that old and you get anesthetized, when you take the anesthesia and you're 80 plus, it messes with your head. And he was a little confused there for about 10 days. But he's coming back, and it looks like things are going well for him. So fingers crossed he'll be back here and home, hopefully in 2, 3 weeks, and I can get back to Idaho in my life. Okay. I think we'll call that good. We're an hour and 15 minutes into this now, hour and 17 minutes, 33 seconds to be exact. But thanks everybody so much. Don't forget to subscribe, ring the notification bell, hit that like button, support us on our Amazon store, visit me on my website at trboland.com. And that'll do it for this week. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you next week. Until then, peace. Goodbye.